Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Tonight we have Guy on, guys from Ludichrist, from Scatterbrain, Music Store, All Music. He's everywhere. So we are going to do our record show. How you doing tonight, man?
All right, very good. You?
I'm doing good, man. You have always been your music's been a big influence on me, so this is fun doing it with you tonight and talking. And last time we talked about going down a rabbit hole just by so many bands, and we have a mutual love of Zappa that we could probably talk 3 days about. So
oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's what's happened. So as we were talking before the show started, how you can start going, I must have grabbed a pile of records that I didn't do for the show and other groups that I had to listen to now, just because of that thing. So I'll start. I picked out 10, and then mixture of different styles. But because we had Ricky on from Skinner the other day, got some great Skinner stories.
Very cool.
I'm gonna first record's gonna be One More for the Road.
I was listening to that today.
See? It's a rabbit hole, man. This is why records are awesome, man.
Yep.
Pictures and fold outs and always a weird smell that you don't know what it is. I mean, you smelled everything in your life. You don't know what it smells like after 20, 30 years. Notes, pictures. I mean, who does the catering? No, but this is great. It's almost the greatest hits because this is the album that they did right. This was in 76. 77 Street Survivors, and then the plane went down, like, unfortunately, three or 4 days after the album was actually released, the Street Survivors. Yeah. So this has got all the hits on it. You know, people would say hits and others. And if you're a Skinner fan, every song's a hit.
Oh yeah.
It's really their best. I think is Gaines on this one too? Is this the one he was on?
I think he was on there. He was in the Crash though, so he must have been on the album.
He was, but the only album he really recorded album he made was the last with Street Survivors.
Oh, so he might not have been on the live.
So this was the 76. That was 77. So he may have joined right prior though, because this was a live album. Yeah, he did, and Casey Gaines is on it too. So
cool. Yeah.
So they have another album with him on it to remember him by. Skinner's I've been a fan forever. And one of the stories that Ricky shared, he was in Blackfoot, and he was friends with Skinner at the time. He was a drummer. Then he left the band. For those who don't know, the only person I know who's ever left a successful band because he didn't feel like he was up for the part.
Yeah,
which is crazy and awesome. Did Blackfoot, friends with them anyhow, family friends. Was going to be on the plane, and Blackfoot got a couple of gigs, and literally that day he pulled out. It was not on the plane, and it carries with him. So it's crazy.
Sure, yeah.
I think we came back and he said he joined the album. He said once he joins, he's there for the rest of his life. He's a member, and he's such a good guitar player too. He totally fits. I mean, and it makes sense to have he's like a family member. He belongs in a band. It's not like they got an outsider too.
Right.
You know what I mean? When bands do that, it always feels so much better. Like it's a piece of the puzzle.
Part of the family, yeah.
All right, man, what you got?
What do I got? So I'll start off. What, of course, this is my first intro to Frank. Zoodalores.
Was it?
Zoodalores. So young Terry Bozzio on the back there too. But yeah, man, this is like the first album I ever heard of Frank. I was 11 years old, and I think the first song was Miss Pinky is the one that I heard. And ever since that, I was just like, I was hooked. I didn't know what the hell it was. You know, before this, I was listening to, just your regular rock stuff, whatever. And I heard that, and then I was just like, man, I kept listening to it, and then started doing, going to the record stores and looking at all the other albums. And
at 11, you did that? So open-minded. Yeah. I was in my 20s before I really could go into it and kind of go off the rock world and,
Yeah, I was always into going to the record stores. I mean, even my parents would take me when I was younger to like, I think it was called Maze. There was a big department store that had a big record store, department in it. And I'd go through all those records. You'd sit there for like 2 hours.
Well, I would do that too with records. I just was Zappa. I had not been there. I think a lot of bands that had started getting me going that way was stuff like you guys, 24/7 Spies, and this is Scatterbrain. And a lot of bands were kind of getting me outside of the box from rock because it was like the detour. Yeah. So by the time somebody that I know was a big Zappa fan exposed me, I was right for the picking at that point because I had been listening to so much other stuff and absorbing it. But I couldn't imagine at 11 years old. I would have been like, what?
Well, I think that was it. Initially, it's like, what the hell is that? But as I started listening to the other songs on it, there was something about it that just caught my attention. And this wasn't an album that had, it was so, so much humor on it, but it was a very cool album. I mean, you got some classics like Black Napkins on here, the solo. I mean, it's one of the greatest, guitar solos that I've ever heard.
And it's funny because Frank, as a guitar player, he's kind of underrated. He would just pick it up and play it when he wanted it as a piece to the next part. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a sit around guitar guy, jammer.
No,
which is insane.
He actually he was a drummer, vibraphone player. That was his thing. Yeah. But yeah, he and there's a lot of times, like, since I have so much bootleg stuff and live stuff, he would go off and play, and and sometimes atonal and very out there. Yeah. But he said that when he would do a solo, he would never pre-plan it. He would just go out and play. So every time it was different. So sometimes you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
But other times, like, Black Napkins, Zoodalores, Watermelon and Easter Hay, beautiful, beautiful melodies that he wrote.
I think because he thought in music. That's why he was a composer. He could write for all instruments. So he thought in music, and it was the instrument to get the music out. Yeah. Right. And like, I think to the instruments to do things, that was the instrument for that piece of music. Mm-hmm. Which is fantastic. Actually, I have my one of my first Zappa albums here too. And I'll jump into it with mine. So my first one that I got into, and actually I made it for myself not being into it when I was a kid by exposing my kids to some of Zappa. And this one they heard, to the fact where they, and then their friend would come over, they knew the words to Billy the Mountain.
Oh boy.
When they were like 5 years old. In the soccer minivan. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that this was like live, and it was like 72 or something. The fact that, Billy the Mountain was a 24-minute song.
Yep.
I also love Call Any Vegetable.
Oh, yeah.
Rutabaga.
All great stuff. I mean, I had Flo and Eddie. That time period, I had Flo and Eddie with them. It was brilliant. Funny. Great players. Ainsley Dunn's
crazy
bar.
To get those guys, too, from what they were doing, being so... And also, what a left turn to go to Zappa.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a great career move, too, because it totally took you out of the...
Oh, yeah. It helped them a lot, too, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but, I mean, get the colorize the band,
Yeah.
It's just so good. I mean, So this was a great album, which I said I played in the car a lot for the kids because I knew it was clean.
Yeah. It's funny because all the years of me driving my kids around and playing all the Zappa, my finger was always on the button, ready to skip that part of the song,
I just had to avoid albums because I'm like, I just can't. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. All right. You ready for my next one?
Oh, yeah.
Right there. Kiss Alive.
Oh, nice.
Kiss Alive. I mean, so many people make fun of it. Oh, Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I guess I had to be, I don't know, maybe around the same age, 10. I don't even remember, being very young and hearing that for the first time. And, of course, the visual of it. But that's just a classic live album. Great stuff. Great songs. Great energy. I love that album.
I hear that or Alive 2. It's one of the others.
I stick with the Alive. The original, old school songs, the stuff that they recorded early on and played, like Strutter.
I like Fire. Right. Yeah, and Firehouse right? And Black Diamond's on it, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah.
That one. It's so hard to with live albums.
Yeah.
That was good. I think my first one was Destroyer, I think, was my first Kiss album.
Another great one. I think that album cover is what like kind of drew you in.
Yeah.
Because it was such a great rendition of them. And not I think not their best songs, but there was a bunch of good songs on there.
Well, what was interesting, if you look at the album cover at the time, you're like, because I remember looking back, I'm like, for like album covers, like the Evil's, the scariest covers I think in my house was like Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. You're like, whoa. I mean, but then you listen to the music, beautiful, but it's not the album cover.
Right.
So you look at the Kiss album and you look at these guys and the monsters, and they got the wings and stuff and the blood, but then you hear like, Sweet Pain or Shout It Out. Like, it's not locking in with what the sound of Kiss, a lot of Kiss does on a lot of their songs. They had more pop sensibilities, I think, than,
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was in the production. I don't think it was them so much. I could be wrong, but I think it was the producer. I don't know if you ever noticed, there was a lot of bells, and I'm talking about those long chime bells.
Yeah.
They hit with the hammer. They used that in a bunch of songs, and kind of that old harmonies like they did in the 50s with the girl singers.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of that influence, but it was underneath, so you didn't hear it a lot, under all the rock stuff. But there's some really good production and well thought out stuff. I don't know if you saw or heard some of the Paul Stanley stuff, his new stuff that he's doing now.
I've heard the first song.
Kind of that kind of old funk, R&B
which
stuff.
Doesn't surprise me. It really ties in. It's always where he's been. It's always been in part of his mix on some level. So him going there, but we were actually talking today about this. For the Kiss album, The Elder, there's actually some gems on that album. It got panned pretty bad, but if you go back and listen, there's some really stinkers on that album too.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of hidden good songs on that album.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to it, like anything, as a person, I've always enjoyed. I like Kiss in different phases too. Like I really enjoyed like some guitar sounds they did on Crazy Nights, that era.
Yeah, I think I was out of them by then. Once the band kind of stopped, the original band broke up, I kind of lost interest. And then I heard some of the stuff, and then they had that little disco kind of era that they were doing, and I lost interest. But I still go back to the old school albums.
That disco was a total fluke album that they made with Desmond. That one song, that they're like, it was a co-writing. Desmond and Paul wanted to get with him because Paul used to go on the club with Desmond.
Yeah,
Desmond Childspeed used to be there, and they had a bunch of, and Paul wanted to go and meet all the girls at the club. They started talking. He's like, let's write a song together. They each wrote a song. I guess the song that he wrote for Desmond didn't go as big. But for Desmond, though, I mean, It's Made for Loving You was huge. That was a big one.
Yeah.
And, but they got caught in the sound. Like, for me, I was always like, different eras of Kiss. I could go back and forth and like appreciate different things. But I don't think it's ever stuck in a solid era. So, I'm going to mix it up. Actually, no. You know what? I'm going to go back. We're going to do one more. One more Zappa.
Yeah.
Here we go. Now, this one is crazy. And actually, if you look at the album, it's a Z, and then sideways, it's a P. Ship arriving too late to save a drowning witch.
Do you understand that picture? Do you know where that came from? Do you know that picture?
I know it's a German artist. Well, I can't think of the name.
If you remember, I don't know if you were old, I don't know how old you are, but there was a show. What's that?
I'm 50.
All right, so I'm 55. So there was a show back in the day, way back in the day, called Zoom, and they used to draw these pictures, and you would have to figure out what that was, and that's basically what that was. The ship arriving too late to save a drowning witch. Yeah. That's where that came from.
I remember that show. Yeah, because I remember that. I remember just like a German guy who did it too. So that was a good. That had some album. Where are you? Had a couple of weird live stuff mixed in from other time periods, and then of course Valley Girl was the big thing.
Yeah.
And then he's got some ripping guitar riffs buried underneath it, but we buried them because it would take away from the song. But it was a good album. I also liked Drowning Witch. It feels like it's kind of pitchy, that weird tone.
Yeah.
That weird. And every now and then, I think the Weasels. I think they did it once or twice live. I want to think. Did it.
I'm sure.
That song. Yeah. It's a good one though.
Yeah.
Dweezil Zappa live is the best. That is.
Yeah, he's
so good.
I know we talked about this
last time. If anybody gets a chance, they've got to see Zappa live because he does everything note for note.
Dweezil is so good. He's like I said last time. He's actually surpassed his father as a guitar player. His playing is just beyond.
Oh, he's surpassed everybody. He's up with his peers. He's not respected. He's I think he's on a certain level. He's not a shredder, but he has a certain technique and sound that I don't think anybody else has. He's actually taking his dad's music that wasn't even written for guitar now.
Yeah.
And he's doing a guitar.
Yep.
So he's just beyond.
He was doing when Frank had Steve Vai in the band, Steve Vai was billed as the stunt guitarist, and he did all the stuff that no one else could do. And now Dweezil is, basically doing that and beyond.
That is ridiculous. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
them playing out again. I mean,
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
It's gonna be awesome because, well, with everybody. But that's one of my big bands I'm waiting for. That's one of my yearly bands I go see all the time.
Mm.
That and Reverend Horton Heat always come around. Those are the two bands I always have to see. Yeah,
cool.
Those are awesome.
Cool.
What you got?
What do I got? Well,
are you running out of Zappa? Or are you got more Zappa too?
I'm only, I could have done all Zappa, so I say I didn't do it. So, and since I only have a few of actual physical albums with me, I'll do this one. Mahavishnu Orchestra, The Inner Mounting Flame. You familiar with John McLaughlin?
Yeah.
This is fusion stuff. Same thing. Once I was into Frank and started, I got into this stuff because of friends' older brothers. The guys older than us, they were kind of into this stuff. This was like the mid 70s. And I was hearing this music that was so out there and difficult. And, and for whatever reason, it just caught my ear and I just got involved. And
I'm going to check it out now.
Yeah, there's just some crazy playing, some crazy free, fusion jazz. And, then I went off the deep end with all the Mahavishnu stuff and the John McLaughlin. And John McLaughlin, when we played with Ravi Shankar, they called it Shakti. Yep. Just great stuff. Still to this day, gotta listen to it. As a matter of fact, I guess.
What year did that come out?
What's that?
What year was that album?
Oh, that's a good question. Since I'm not in very good lighting, I couldn't tell you, but
you had good lighting though.
I did, but it was behind me. I'm very bad with light. I have really problem with light sensitivity, so that's why my glasses are tinted that I wear all day and all night. Oh, this album's so beat up I can barely read it.
It's gotta be like early 70s.
Yeah, it's definitely early 70s. Just if you haven't heard it, you gotta
check it out.
Listen to it. It's one of those albums that just like wow. And it's funny because one song on here called "Meeting of the Spirits," I guess it was maybe the second tour of Scatterbrain. We used to walk out to that song. That's how we would walk out onto stage. So it was really cool, song that they did.
Did you bring it? So like, was the other members into it also, or was it just you?
Yes. Paul was into it. I don't know. I think Glenn. I mean, I'm sure all the guys kind of heard it because at that point at our age, you probably did as a musician. But they were all into it, and it just had a vibe. It was a cool song to walk out to.
Yeah, I can't believe I've heard John McLaughlin, but I haven't heard that. I'm gonna have to go back now. I'll probably listen to it tonight shortly after the show. I'll probably be checking it out.
Flame, don't forget.
Oh, I won't. I've got it down. So I think we really got that. A lot of 70s vibes going on. So what I'm going to do is
nice brain salad surgery.
Yep, brain salad surgery. Little tongue-in-cheek. Yeah. And you went there from ELP. This is a really good album. It's not what you call a lot of like a breakout song or anything. And but the album itself was so good. I don't even know. There's one song on it that they actually had that was like big. Well, a single.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what the heck it was now. Yeah. I'm not even sure at this point. Because a lot of them are like long pieces and they break into it. I know there's one point, there's like a line here, like "Welcome to Where You Are," something is part of like the second verse of a second song, a breakdown, and everybody knows. But it's a good album. I love it. Here's the thing. I love listening to music when it's a full album a lot of times. I don't like skipping. And I'm really disappointed if an album it has like only a couple good songs from a band. I'm like, you know what I mean? I want to put it down and I want to go for a ride.
Right. Well, that's how we grew up. That's the way you had to do it. I mean,
right, and these filler albums. Ugh.
As you knew the albums, then if you really want to pick up the needle and skip it and not scratch it, you did it. But most of the times, you sat down on the chair, you put that album on, and it was a listening experience. Yeah, and that album.
That's like a great cover.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those great covers.
Oh, what's this? The artist, he's done everything. Just did a bunch of Danzig albums.
I don't know the name.
Jagger, Gigr, He's an artist.
Oh, the same guy that did Alien, Geiger.
Yeah, Geiger. Thank you.
H.R. Geiger, yeah.
Yeah. He actually saw them, did a show over there, and he came in the show, and then they actually changed the name of the album for it too, and he did the work for it. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool album.
I have a really cool guitar that Ivan has put out with the H.R. Geiger artwork, and it's a metal etched body, and it's based on like that Alien artwork that he did. It's freaking cool as hell.
That is. Oh, I have one of his books of art. This is so good. He is so good.
Yeah.
Are you keeping the 70s vein, or where are you going with now?
You know what, dude? I think almost everything I have is 70s. You know, I'm still listening to the same stuff from the 70s. I haven't really, even if my Apple Music, I mean, I have gone off. So, you know what? I will bring in a more modern one.
I'll go to the 90s. I stop at the 90s for most vinyl, though. There's a few things I have up past it very rarely, but generally 60s to the 90s. I won't go, you know.
Well, my next one, I think, hard rock wise, I always liked hard rock, but bordering on, I wouldn't say metal, but the album that really I love and I can listen to all the time is Seven Dust Seasons. That album is just, you know, I have a lot of their other stuff. You know, they were very into the screaming type thing for a while, and a lot of that which I never liked. But they got that producer on that album that did Seasons with them, and it changed the singing, the harmonies, everything. And that just is still very heavy, but still extremely melodic and just a really, really great album.
They're a solid band too. They continually. Totally. I mean,
I've seen them live a few times, and I really dig it.
I saw them a few times. Yeah, for the first album. What's great is the guitar player John. He used to be in a band called the Peace Dogs. He used to be a drummer.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Atlanta. I was going to college in Atlanta. They were the big. The singer had like the blonde hair in the band. They look kind of like a Cheap Trick, and they're big. They're called the Peace Dogs. Their big song and their set would be Peace Dog by the Cult.
Mm-hmm.
They had a place and they used to play out, but yeah, he was the drummer. And then after that band broke up, when everything probably went belly up, they had like one album out.
Right.
He switched to guitar shortly after. John from whatever Seven Dust. All of a sudden he was playing the guitar and he was just ripping at the guitar. It was so great to have him come out and do that.
Yeah, and he's got a great voice too.
Yeah, he really does. He really. So the band actually going down probably was the best thing for him. In hindsight. Yeah. But they were, I remember going to see them. So it was funny seeing him originally behind a drum set and kind of a rocky, glammy band.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, seeing him playing guitar, leading this like heavy band, like total change up. So that was awesome. Good album.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm going to go the other way with this one and talk really kind of two, but one. Steely Dan. And actually,
love them.
It's
Asia,
yeah. and then Katie Lied.
So, so many great albums by them.
All of them are good, just really good. I actually just had these bundled together, so I'm like, they're both coming together. And with Katie Lied, I'm trying to think of some of the bigger songs people even know. Maybe Black Friday.
Bad Sneakers.
Dr. Wu. Yeah, Bad Sneakers is on this one. Yep. You would know the song. The thing with Steely Dan, I think for a lot of people is you don't know the names of the songs, but you know Steely Dan.
Yeah, because you heard it on the radio at some point in your life.
Like everyone else, like Black Cow, Deacon Blues, and Peg. Most people, I bet you will not know like the melody to Peg. They'll hear it, they'll be like, and they know the words to it, but they don't even know who sings it or what. You know what I mean?
And then you hear that distinctive voice of Michael McDonald on it.
It's it's such a good.
Those guys are just such great musicians, great writers, just a talented band.
Well, for this album, I guess, was named after a Japanese woman, and I guess they had like 40 musicians on it to do this album. You know how perfectionists they were?
Yep.
Over 40 musicians.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine working with them.
Perfectionists, yeah.
And it's crazy. They're still together. They still talk. They still do music together after all those years of being that tight, working on something.
Yeah.
To become like a homicide. It's crazy.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's so crazy. But I love me some Steely Dan. It depends on the mood.
Yeah, sure. All right. I'm going to go back to Zappa for a second. This album, Zappa in New York.
This is a good one.
This is a great one. Let's see. They're still together. Yeah.
Probably my second album by him.
You know, I always loved that photo of them standing on stage, you know, with Ruth Underwood and Ray White. And this album, you know, this was like the height of their Halloween shows that they used to do, like, you know, a week of shows over there. And I think this is what really got me into Frank's humor stuff, where I got where, you know, humor does belong in music, you know, and it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. And he was one of those guys, I think, that took it there. Well, I know he was. So,
he was serious about being funny.
Yeah. I mean, he wrote serious classical music, did all that, but at the same time, you know, he can poke fun at anyone and everyone. And some classic stuff on here. Terry Bozzio in his prime, doing songs like Titties and Beer. One of my favorite songs on here is very long song. It was The Approximate in the Purple Lagoon. And, you know, you got the Fowler Brothers on here. It's just killer stuff.
It is. I love the album today. It's a good album to listen to. Like I said, probably like my second album I got too. Got really, because there's so many songs on there, just so, you know.
Yeah. And another thing is Scatterbrain we ended up doing Titties and Beer as part of our show.
I know. I remember that.
You know,
I remember you guys doing that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I heard you guys do it before I actually heard the original.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Probably another reason what led me that way. That's what I'm saying. It's really funny. Yeah, that was. I mean, you guys did a bunch of fun songs. We talked about that before. Yeah, you didn't remember, say, the Pat Travers doing Boom Boom.
I don't remember that one. No.
I remember Glenn used to call it, be like, go do Pat Travers. I don't know if you guys had played with him or something. A couple times, yeah. And I really didn't know the song. I had to go back and listen to it. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I'm sure we did a bunch of things I don't remember.
That's okay. I liked it. I appreciated it. Yeah, for people that are watching, I've probably seen guys' band play. God, I can't even tell you how many times. I saw you guys play in Atlanta. I saw you playing like North Carolina. I saw you guys DC. I think down like in Battery, or like one of the worst clubs ever, in the worst area. Club. Oh yeah. Like Video Walls. Yeah, it's the craziest, most dangerous place ever.
Yeah.
That was a good show though.
The dirtier the better.
They were actually. I think they were all good. I mean, you guys just fed off each other. I think what happened is in the crowds. Very dedicated.
Oh yeah, crowd. Yeah. If you had a crappy crowd, it's hard to, you know, get yourself motivated sometimes.
Yeah, I saw you for a bunch, so I've always saw a good show. So this is I like, and I've been talking about Aerosmith lately. That's like they're done with mirrors. This is a really weird spot for them. I just got to remember walking to sand. You know, Joe and Steven were at their out. Everyone's doing drugs. Everyone's like hot mess, breaking up. You know, the whole band. I think Joe owed like $80,000 in hotel bills, and I think he quit the band after this. And you know, Jimmy Crispo joined the other band. You know, but I got Chiquita. I really love the No Surprise. This is how gritty and dirty, and it sounds like what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, it's obviously not like a platinum Angel or Dude Looks Like a Lady album, but I like this. That's like Done with Mirrors too, when they were still messed up before their Permanent Vacation album.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. Really good, really gritty. Night in the Ruts. Plus, Right in the Nuts. Right, Night in the Ruts.
Yeah.
Got a little tongue in cheek there.
Yep.
So that was my rock pick for now. What you got?
I don't know if I got any records left.
It's all right. We got 4 more.
We got 4 more. All right. Well, I do know the ones I wanted to tell you about.
Tell me, because I will put them up after.
That one right there. Elvis Costello, My Aim Is True. So that one, part of my record experience days was I used to go to the public library in Hicksville. And when I would go to the library, they would have a section of just albums. And I would go through the albums just to see what I wanted to rent that week. And I just remember going through and I saw, and this was always stuck in my head, Elvis Costello. I was like, this guy's got Elvis's first name and Abbott and Costello's last name. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I brought it home, and man, I was hooked. Elvis Costello, another great musician. I love his voice. I loved his writing. That's still a classic album. Kind of borders on the punk new wave stuff, and I love him. I think he's great. I listened to a lot of his stuff. I love the album that he did with Burt Bacharach, doing all the old standards. I mean, just love that guy. Great voice.
He has like
great
50 albums out, like, you know, at this point. And I know, doesn't he, like, he tours? Sometimes he brings out the wheel of songs.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And he just spins it.
Yeah, he's got some.
And he has so many songs, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how fantastic is that? Yeah, I have some of those albums too. And I was going to. It's funny, like a lot of the same ones you did. We're totally in the same path. Like,
yeah,
I think our collection is very similar because I saw it with your list. I was like, oh, okay, I have to find something a little different.
And you believe me, my list, I was saying like, oh, maybe I should do this. But certain things I didn't put on there. But like we talked about before, you can keep going. Frampton Comes Alive. The first Boston album. These were so big and monumental back then.
Well, I think they still are. Can you imagine the sound of Boston? I mean, first off, all these albums, no, a lot of this wouldn't even happen. That was a time period that allowed artists to work on an album, to tour, to work an album for a couple. Come on, do you think if this came out in the '90s, we would know who Aerosmith would be an influence on anybody?
Right.
Oh, they'd be like that one-off album from the '80s that people talk about. You know what I mean? They were a good band, but they got dropped because you don't work an album.
Yeah.
Back then, just like Fleetwood Mac had how many different versions of the band, different genres and styles. You could work it. Now with Boston's a one band though. Like he literally recorded everything in his basement. He invented stuff he needed. He pretended he was something else.
Yeah, he was engineer. He was brilliant.
And then like released it and then did nothing like for like a long period of time, like doing albums. It's like the craziest schedule he set, and then each album come out would be huge.
Yeah. And Brad Zelp, I mean, his voice was insane. Yeah.
Very few people can do him live now.
What's that?
Very few people can actually do that live.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, Brad's passed. Unfortunately, ended his life. Steven Sweet from Stryper, I think, did part of a tour with them, singing those parts. He's got the high end voice there to still do it at his age. His voice is not getting weaker. I don't know how he does it. So while we're talking monumental bands, let's see. Now, all right. So let's take a minute and go down the Rush hole. Okay, I love Rush. I love all the stuff. Like, okay. The one album that people don't know Rush, whoever you are, this dude in the middle, that's not Neil Peart.
Yep.
It looks like it could be Rod Stewart for all we know. John Rutsey, I think physically he couldn't take it, the playing, or something was just too much on his body, or there's some reason he couldn't.
I think he wasn't interested. He wasn't interested in doing the rigors of touring and everything like that. I just watched the show about them, and they talked about that.
Yeah, I've seen so much. I just always remember, there's only so much point before your mind starts dropping off. Now, you can really hear the Zeppelin and Cream influence in this album. Super, especially his voice, the high end. But I mean, like Finding My Way, Here Again, What You're Doing. I mean, Working Man. I mean, a lot of people think this is, the critics panned it. I still say it's not like that great of a Rush album. I think Rush albums can stand on their own. It's kind of hard to rate a Rush album, in my opinion. It's like a stamp on time.
Well, if you think of that album and the time it came out and what they were doing, and it was very different. And here was this guy that looked like Geddy and sounded like something you never heard before.
Yeah.
At first you go, what the hell is that? But great stuff. I mean, really great. I mean, Working Man, still to this day, you go, it's just a great rock song with this guy with some crazy high voice.
But back then, nobody even, can't even compare to, Al's guitar playing, the sounds that they would come up with, and excuse me, and Geddy with his bass, the pedals, and he's got the keyboards and bass keyboard, and he was just everywhere. within a few albums, he was everywhere, and it became like keyboard band, but not an 80s. I mean, kind of 80s keyboard music at the time for like big money, because that was the sound of keyboards were going. But he was doing like keyboards and, you know, electric piano and instrumental pieces all the way through, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just think that was the only time that people took a hit at him, was the big money keyboard, because that's what the 80s sounded like, you know.
But just think that song "Big Money," that freaking bass line is so great. And I always said this, Getty, he played these intricate bass lines and was singing a totally different, rhythm over it. I'm like, how the hell do you do that?
Oh, good. And at the same time, his foot's on something else too, like another pedal for a keyboard on too. He's like over here.
Pedals. Yeah, the Taurus pedals. Yeah.
He's just ridiculous. He's just another talent that's just, you know. Well, and Alex, and of course the late Neil Peart. I mean,
oh yeah.
You know, you're the best drummer in the world. What do you do when you take a break? Get drum lessons.
Yeah.
Really? Which is great. He did. I mean, that's why you become the best. That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You innovate, you know.
And here's a guy that, wrote all the lyrics.
You know, and it's funny, when I first started getting to Rush, it was way back when I was a kid. And you hear that, you're like, okay, you rock band, you kind of just from the outside, right? And you start getting the albums, you're listening, you're like, wait a minute. Drummer's writing all the words? You know? And the fact that they have, even to the end, the Clockwork Orange, you get the comics and a theory, and it's layers and layers and layers, you know, and I mean, I think, you know, all the success that they traded off, Neil traded off, you know, he went through so much suffering too. He lost his wife, he lost a child.
Yeah, and so close to each other too. Yeah, very sad life. And and then after that, when he decided to just go on the road with his motorcycle and just do that for, I think, 2 years he did it.
Yeah.
And then when he went back and started touring with Rush again, he would bring his motorcycle on tour, and he would never do the meet and greets or anything. He had no interest in that. He would get on his bike and go to the next show.
Which is pretty awesome.
He had a tough life. It was very sad.
Yeah, I mean, and to be like the best and be like the biggest, you have everything, but then you lose the two things that are just the most to you. And then he finally gets settled in, he gets a wife, and he gets kids, he rebuilds and then retires, and then, you know what I mean? Again. It's so awful.
Yeah.
But the legacy of music that he did is so good. I'm gonna end. So I've got 3. So I'm gonna say my last 2 are just kind of like rocky metal albums that are classics. But what? Actually, no. Sorry. Actually, it's your turn. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Oh.
What do you got?
All right. Jeff Beck, Wired. You like Jeff Beck?
I love Jeff Beck.
Another, instrumental.
Well, Scatterbrain. Come on.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Beck was, again, I loved instrumental music. And when I heard Jeff Beck, I think the first time I heard Jeff Beck, I was much younger when he was with Rod Stewart. So I didn't take to it as much.
Mm-hmm.
But when, Wired and Blow by Blow and those albums came out, he did stuff with the guitar that no one else could do. And still to this day.
Yeah, he still is too.
I mean, I've seen Jeff recently, and he's just, no one's got the control that he has in his fingers and the way he uses the bar, and and he can do anything. He really can do anything.
He had the most basic guitar. He could get a Sears guitar and he would rip it apart. He is just so good. What was really crazy is I remember, so like he did the big 70s, and all of a sudden, like a lot of people that weren't familiar with him, he got together. And remember, he did that song with Rod Stewart. He came back in a song with him. Did People Get Ready?
Sure.
How beautiful is that guitar?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't even need. Rod Stewart's a good singer, at the time, at his peak, whatever. But let's just take a minute and peel back the vocals on that. Let's just talk about Jeff. You don't even that is just a solo guitar piece. That is.
Well, you listen to anything on Wired, it's the same thing.
Of course,
because we ended as lovers. I might confuse some of the albums. Blue Wind. There's so many. Goodbye, Poke by Hat. I mean, so many songs that the guitar is the vocal, is is the leading part of the song, that you don't need vocals. He just amazing. And the way I never knew when I was younger that he didn't use a pick. It wasn't until later on when I started seeing him in videos, I was like, wow, this guy has that much control, with his playing, and his bar technique is just unreal.
I mean, he's legendary, but I still don't think he was as big as he should be. You know what I mean? He should be as big as.
Well, you
Like,
know what? It's that style of music. So, he's the guitar players. He's the musician's hero.
yeah,
But he's had some life, man. He's Yardbirds.
that's what I'm
Jeff Beck,
saying.
Rod Stewart. I mean, he's really been around. He's done a lot of stuff with people.
He is a musician, but I'm saying, but like, you never got the celebrity of a Satriani or a Steve
Yeah,
Vai or.
yeah. But they all look up to him.
I know, and he's as good. He's just different, and that's the best part. Is that you're just different, but you're just good.
You don't have to play a million notes a minute to be better than someone. I mean, I love Vi. I love his playing. He's unbelievable, the stuff he does. But when you hear some of Jeff's stuff, it's just like, it's unbelievable. It's just, it's an extension of him. He knows how to make that guitar sing.
He is. I've just lost a week of my life listening to all these albums again now.
Yeah.
Thanks, guy. Because I know I'm going to be doing it the next 7 days, my friend.
Yeah, it's crazy. I will end up going tomorrow. Going, what should I listen to next from it that I missed?
Yeah,
I want to go back to a Rush album.
Well, it is. It's crazy because it's you get really excited for music, or just like when I got these new headphones, right? This a while back though. And also you hear you put it in, you hear something you haven't heard in a while, or you hear something different.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I didn't hear that before. All of a sudden, every album sounds different again. You got to listen to it again. It's exciting. It's like the first time. So I have a weak spot for Blue Oyster Cult. Now,
interesting.
This was not their big album. This is The Tyranny and Mutation. They had one single off of it. I think it was Hot Rails to Hell. It's a good rock song. It's a lot of good rock stuff on it. Little bit of left turn for these guys, and afterwards they kind of went back to more their Blue Oyster Cult sound. But I do think I always love the artwork. It's funny, they always get that classic rock feel like they're a bunch of old dudes, but really they had some dark stuff, man. They're heavy and dark, Sabbathy.
Yeah.
But they always kind of get put more in the Foghat thing. You know what I mean? Where it's kind of
I don't think I ever
mustachy
followed them enough to know. I mean, besides Godzilla and whatever, Don't Fear the Reaper.
Yep.
But and that's another band that's still going.
Yeah. Well, and at the time I didn't. Like, this is like 10, 15 years ago, I started to go back. And there's a lot of bands I've done that with, like Death Without I've gone back, Deep Dive. I've gone. Like, I have everything with them. Like, and it's funny, you laugh, you're like, oh, but Ian and just you start listening to it and John on guitar and oh my god, and then the drumming, and especially the drumming on the first couple albums, or like the trilogy of like Heavy Horses or that's another thing like Zappa. I could just go days with Jethro Tull. It's totally out there at the time.
Great band, great band. Yeah, and that's another one. When you listen to what's really going on, if you kind of don't listen to the vocals for a second, you're like, man, these guys, there's some really good music behind that.
Now, and I can tell you it. So, like a few years ago, I knew a couple of Jethro Tull songs, and on the radio, like we all did, right? Just like like with Godzilla, or whatever. And I had an album, I put it on as like mowing or something, and drive mower, get the good things on, and also I'm listening to it. Also, I'm starting to hear, I'm like, oh my god, where are these drums coming from? Where's this guitar coming from? Next thing you know, I'm 5 records in, and my collection's, like I go, it's so good, but you really gotta peel it back and not just listen to the radio song,
Yeah.
It's how it is. But yeah, so Blue Oyster Cult's from the band, a good deep dive band, and they're underrated, I think.
Yeah. Just to go, they just didn't know.
Yeah, they just released a new album.
Yeah, I know that. Like you said, I know they're always playing. I just bought a huge record collection today. It's like being dropped off at my store tomorrow. But it's like 6 boxes. There might be over 500 albums. I bought it sight unseen, so I'll let you know once I go through it.
Oh, we gotta talk, man.
Yeah.
We have to have lunch because you may have some gems there.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna, so I'm interested in going through it. It's gonna be like the old days going through.
Wow, that's a lot, man. That's awesome.
It might be more than that. He said there's 6 huge boxes, so we'll see.
Congratulations, that's awesome. Yeah. Hit me up.
That's something I usually don't do, but I got the Colton. I was like, what the hell? I'll do it.
I was looking a lot, and what happened in the past couple of years is the records got more popular. I had a couple of bins given to me too, or bought and sold online. Also, everyone thinks like, I've got Prince the album, I got Purple Rain, it's $30. I'm gonna sell it for you. I'm like, dude, or Michael Jackson. Let me tell you something about an album. If it's a multi-platinum, 15 million album sold, everybody has one.
Right.
Not worth more than $1.
Yeah.
You know, you find an album that most people don't have in good condition, that's worth something. You know,
Exactly.
but people don't. Every Beatles album is worth something to people. You know, I got the first Beatles album. I'm like, so don't I.
Yeah.
I got almost all the Beatles albums, original albums. You know, so.
And that was a hard thing for me to not put any Beatles on here, because I think, if I remember correctly, to when I was about 4 years old, I think the first physical album I ever got was a Beatles album with my grandmother in like Brooklyn. I'll never remember because I can't remember what it was, but I remember having like the 45 of Revolution.
Yeah, I can tell you, my grandmother got me I was into Beatles and Elvis Presley, so those were my first ones. So even though I didn't see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, my first influences were still the Beatles. And I can tell you my first 45 I think it was Johnny Cash singing "Dark as a Dungeon." I had like a little kid Playtel set. But my first album that was given to me was the Beatles. It was when the cover they're all together and they got the little mob cuts, has the one with your hand on it. You know, that album. It's like Meet the Beatles or something. I know they changed it. Depends on what country you're in, what they called it. That would be my first album I think that I had that was given to me.
Yeah,
the Beatles, man. Which, like you, I've got all the albums too. So
and Elvis. I mean, just as your parents, you growing up with your parents, you couldn't help it. Elvis was on TV all the time, so you watch this guy, do that, and you ended up liking it.
And how could you not? I mean, he had this, he had the entertainment, then you get, you're kind of doing this. He's like an actor. Also, then boom, 68 special. Like he's out in leather, the lights. Yeah, you don't get any more than badass than the 68 special, that right? Yeah. Who at 68 was wearing full leather with jet black hair? Yeah, nobody. Yeah. That is the beginning of heavy metal. Like the look. That is. Right. Before Sabbath, is it? Just, yeah. That was ahead of time. What you got? I just did.
All right. This was like this at the same time I discovered Frank. Utopia, Ra. That was Todd Rundgren had originally. It came out as Todd Rundgren back in the 60s. Then in the early 70s, he had Todd Rundgren's Utopia, which was a little bit more fusion-y stuff. But then he came and put together the band with the four guys, and that ended up staying together for a number of years. But Ra is the first album I heard by them, and another one I was just hooked. And I'm like, he's like the number two after Zappa for me. Todd Rundgren and Utopia, just love their stuff. Great musicians, all four of them sang. Very reminiscent of the Beatles stuff, and just a cool album.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that now because I don't know. I mean, I know Todd, some of his later stuff, but
concept album, kind of, one side or a good portion of one side is one song called "Sing Ring in the Glass Guitar." One song is called "Hiroshima." Just really great stuff. I don't know, man. It's just. I think back to those days in the 70s, and it was so new and exciting and stuff that you didn't normally hear.
But they wrote albums like Yes Is No Life. Like I have about 1 billion rests. I saw you. Yes, I could have done a whole episode on Yes.
Yeah,
concept albums. Four album double disc. Like it's just everything. It's so thought out. There's 85 members in Yes. Depends on when you're seeing them. I just saw them not that long ago too. It was the 90210 lineup.
Oh, really?
They did.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, what's his face came and played guitar. He hadn't played with them in
Trevor
a while.
Rabin?
Yes.
Great.
He came and played. What a treat to have him play with them. Because that was not an ordinary thing. It's like 2 years ago before the plague. Covidia. Welcome to Covidia. So, all right, my last two. I'm gonna do this one. Because we're talking about guitar heroes. Now, Ozzy, everyone loves Ozzy. It's cliche. It's known. He's great. But the other cliche is Randy Rhoads. But this is the first album that he did with Randy. So, like, this is like when Randy came from Quiet Riot. So this is taking us back in time. That was so fresh. Once again, I mean, who wrote the stuff? Controversially, went back and forth. But this is the I don't know. He still does crazy train came back. Goodbye to Romance, Mr. Crowley, Suicide Solution, D. Who did a guitar piece like D ever? Still with the Night. I mean, this is a really solid album.
Yeah,
this is one of the two we did, and then of course another plane accident.
Yeah, Ozzy.
Just need to stay away from planes.
I don't care what you say about Ozzy. He's a character, but man, Sabbath. I mean, the stuff that they were writing in the late '60s.
Oh yeah,
and him coming from there and going into his solo career, and I got to see Ozzy twice in the last few years, and I didn't get to see him earlier on when they were together, and man, they were unbelievable. They were unbelievable on that stage, man. And
well, what I'm saying is like, everyone's got a different opinion on Ozzy because he's a different celebrity. It's like it's like the celebrity of not being a musician type of stuff. I'm talking about I was an Ozzy fan, like the first 6 Sabbath albums for me was like for like a year, that's all I listened to. Or No Rest for the Wicked, it was the first tour I saw him on. I've also saw him later on. I saw him on Black Sabbath. I didn't get to see Black Sabbath younger, but I did see Black Sabbath with him, and I did see him do the No Rest and probably some other stuff too. Great shows, great musicians, Yeah. He's persevered. He's pushed through.
You can't understand him when he talks, but when he gets on stage, all of a sudden he does everything right.
He's an entertainer. He's great, and he's
Yeah.
What you got? You actually saw? Did you have? What about your Steve Vai? You're gonna do Steve Vai, right? What about Passion of Warfare?
Well, that was one of my 12th or 13th one, but
let's talk about it for a minute. We were talking about guitar, so
Passion of Warfare. I mean, if I really took a step back when I heard, because I knew Steve from playing with Zappa, when his first album he came out was Flexible, it was totally Zappa. He totally influenced. I love that album. But when Passion of Warfare came out, actually Scatterbrain, we were on the label with Steve, and his album came out right when our album was coming out. He actually debuted our first video on MTV, but that album came out, and I mean, that album is just insane.
It was
just one song after another. Some of it's a little out there, little snippets in between, but you talk about ballads, you think of like whatever, a Bon Jovi ballad or whatever the big rock ballads are, and I still think one of the biggest ballads there is For the Love of God. I mean, that song off that album, I can listen to it 10 times a day, because there's so much feeling in that song. And
I had to learn the riff. I agree. I had to learn the riff for it because I love it so much.
The buildup of the the whole song and the solo, and I never get tired of it. And I got to help him out on stage a couple of times, and I did some work with him. And I stood there on the side of the stage, like 25 feet from him, watching him do it, and amazed that he still pulls it off like the album. And I'm just amazing. Such a great album.
He's good. He talk about him now, but go back. I have a story too, Steve. Story. But now you see, he hurt his hand, and he just did a song, and he released it with one hand.
One hand, yeah. Oh, for Steve, that's
Stop, Steve. You're just ridiculous. You're just so good.
Yes.
So, be on the same label. I interned for the label that you guys were on, in effect, Combat Records. So that's how I, fell in love with 24/7 Spies. But Steve Vai, you guys were the two big things at the same time, just like you said. Yeah. And I remember Steve came into town, and he came in. We had dinner. They bought first time a vegetarian pizza. He brought in and he sat with us, like the interns, like the record people inside the place, probably where we were, the office. And then it was like a couple of us interns. He got some beer, vegetarian pizza, pulled up some ground and sat on the floor with us. And had pizza with the rest of us teenagers.
Yeah.
And just hung and talked and hung out with us one time. That's who Steve. That's the Steve I know. And that was the litmus for me of what a musician should be.
Yeah.
Because, like, literally, it was just like anybody else you met. I mean, dude's tall.
Yes.
And he has an energy that he presents that's almost like vibrating, like, and you know what I'm saying, because you've met him, you know this thing about him.
Guy, yeah.
And in a good way, but like even if he wasn't known like a super, you'd meet him and be like, wow, that guy. But that was it. And I can tell you that the same year I was walking through the mall in Atlanta, and I bumped into Clapton, Eric Clapton.
Oh wow.
And so I went to go to meet him, and at the time he went through some bad things. I think it was around the time his son died. It was around the time of Pretending. So I don't remember the fact he was kind of upset that he got noticed in a store. I mean, he really kind of he was like in a Nike store. He had like a bodyguard that was like 7 feet tall. He's real small, his little frilly jacket. He had this beautiful blonde woman who's like at Amazon. He really stood out. And then he was like at a shoe store, a Foot Locker or something. Yeah, it was like a Foot Locker. But he did shake my hand. He had these really tiny, tiny little hands. It was odd, but between seeing him and Steve, and at Dimebag too from Pantera.
Oh yeah.
Same thing. Had drinks, talked to him. Fantastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I looking back, I'm like, how lucky was I to meet all these people?
Yeah.
And
really you're interviewing some really. I watched so many interviews. You get to interview some really heavy hitters, man.
Oh, thank you. I love music. I mean, I've pretty much talked to a lot of people. I can't think of very few. I'd like to actually sit down and talk to Steve and Joe at some point, and at some point, and track them down. So I've got one album left I want to do, and I liked them as a rock band, like everyone else in the 80s and 90s. And but what happened is, the deep dive. We talk about. I started getting back into their 70s stuff. Okay, see if you can actually know the band. Their big album that I really was going through a phase with was Tokyo Tapes. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
Their 70s. They had albums called the Tokyo Tapes. Okay. Scorpions. Love it first thing.
That's someone I never got into. Yeah.
You gotta take some time and go back, and if you listen to, it's a different band almost. It's incredible, like their early 70s stuff, because Michael's in the band, and it's very psychedelic and stuff. Or Uli Roth is in the band at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Uli Roth has the holy grail of guitars. You ever see that guitar?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, it's crazy the way it's toned and it's set.
Yeah, it's crazy. I always wanted to get one of those from the store. It's like $7,000. It's a crazy price.
Yeah, the way he talks about it, I've probably seen him talk about the same thing like about 1 billion times, and it's just ridiculous. But that album is probably a good point. But like, I really love their old stuff. I don't have it in the vinyl. Interesting thing I learned recently was what I didn't realize was Eric Brazilian from the Hooters wrote a bunch of songs with the Scorpions.
Oh, really?
So the thought of the Hooters writing a bunch of big Scorpion songs is something I never would have put, because you would have seen in the credits. I would have thought, Eric was, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But he's a songwriter. I mean, he wrote like 1 billion other songs, Cyndi Lauper and this and that.
Yeah.
But I was so pleased to hear Scorpions, and just some of the new songs I love too by them. It's fantastic. I have Flexible too on vinyl too, and Passion Warfare. I mean, Flexible is such a great, and that is the gateway to Zappa. If someone isn't into Zappa but they like guitar, Steve, you give them that one.
Yeah, I mean, Little Green Men. If that's not Frank's stamp all over it, I mean, it's totally Frank. And still to this day, Steve always talks about Frank and the influence he had. I mean, Steve was 18 years old and he was young. I mean, how could he not be influenced by everything he played? But Steve wrote some great stuff, man.
That album was recorded by a lot of Frank Zappa stuff. Right? He didn't borrow a lot. It was like his first house that something Frank had. Steve had. And he built like a little studio, and I think he borrowed a lot of his gear, outboard gear.
I don't know. So, it could be. I wouldn't doubt it.
That was still the transition period where he was kind of doing his own thing, and I think if you go to Steve's website, he has like a little breakdown of his stuff. But I noticed prior where he was like he'd be borrowing stuff and recording it and check this out, and because Frank's the kind of guy he'd be supportive. He's not going to be like, you're out of the band, you know what I mean? Yeah, see you later, kid, or something. Like I'm talking like a gumshoe now, but he's here's $20, kid. Yeah. I think he built like his first studio too with that, and when he recorded that, like sometime like I think he took like a shed or a bedroom or something, and he kind of makeshift it, and that was the album that came out of it. And I know recently they released the Flexible Leftovers. That was even crazier. Yeah.
It's some out there stuff. I was just listening to maybe 2 weeks ago, Fire Garden. Great stuff on that. Great stuff. He really knows how to layer a lot of sounds and
He
instruments.
does. There's a lot going on, you know, in his head and its way his albums are built. He's, you know, he has it all thought out too. Like all his albums, like he releases them, he's like like every 7th song. So he's like thinking like albums out and like layers. And I'm thinking like, what am I gonna eat for lunch tomorrow? Man, I can't even get that far, right? So, oh man, this has been awesome.
Do I have any left? Am I done?
You have Ted Nugent was on your list.
No, you see, I should have never sent you that.
That was on the end of it.
That was at the end of it. But you know, there's one there's really two more I'm going to tell you because they really are
please.
Such big albums. Queen, A Night at the Opera.
Yep.
I mean, that Drop Dead Legs, not Drop Dead Legs, sorry, Death on Two Legs.
But Drop Dead Legs is a good song too by Van Halen.
Yeah. You know, that album was a huge monumental album. You know, in my lifetime, in Queen's lifetime, just crazy. And the other one for me was Yes, Close to the Edge.
Which both of those I have on vinyl too.
Yeah, I mean, I still to this day, Close to the Edge, love it. I mean, I could listen to that over and over too. Brilliant.
When I saw you had that, I went up, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to pick a favorite one of mine. And I usually go for Tales of Topographic is like the double album, that crazy album. Like a lot of people's hit or miss. You either love it, you don't. To me, hands down, depending what days, is my first favorite or second Yes album. Like it depends. You know what I mean? I can never say the ultimate 10. It always depends on what day it catches me on in my 10 list.
Mm-hmm.
But that album is fantastic. Yeah, on your list, you also had your carryover list, your overflow. Oh, so I was gonna do Yes. So I went to grab something and I started looking. I'm like, this one. I literally couldn't decide on a Yes album, so I put them all back.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't even pick out one Yes album.
Yeah, there's another
I
band
couldn't do it.
So prolific and so much stuff. There's like a million things that you can choose from. Yeah,
every album.
Yeah, and my overflow, Led Zeppelin. I mean, there's so many great Led Zeppelin albums, but Presence.
That album, I just actually used that one. I just same thing. Literally, like my last one.
Such a brilliant album, and probably not their most popular.
That's why I picked it.
It's just a great album, though. I mean, such great songs on that album.
It's like a mid-tempo album too. It's not like over the top or very slow. It's got this really nice, gentle groove where it's kind of. You know what I mean?
I think it always reminds me of. I had it on 8-track and Achilles' Last Stand. I just remember putting that in the 8-track player, and I just something about that. Still,
I'm gonna tell you, 8-track makes you think of what killed 8-track killed it for me is having Styx, Paradise Theater, fading into too much time on my hands, fading down, and then having to fading it back up. Oh my god, that's what killed 8-tracks right there. It just
yeah. There's still a song that I hear all the time. I'm gonna forget what band and what song it is, but still to this day, when I hear it, I know that exact point when it went from track 1 to track 2. I still can hear that and go to the next track.
Yeah, I mean at the time it was a good information. Excuse me. So yeah, I picked the same thing. Actually, this is your last one. So you had Uncle Ted there, Double Live
Gonzo.
Now, right now, Mr. Ted Nugent is very controversial, and he always has been.
I think he was
young girls, whatever. Yeah. Right, but more politically. But stepping aside, his guitar playing and his music,
and his stage show,
bar none, and his stage presence and his bar none. I mean, he's been a good performer.
Great.
Regardless what you feel about everything else, and some of us is kind of dirty the waters with some of his other stuff, of his legacy. But yeah, Devil Live Gonzo is such a good album.
I remember seeing him, on regular network TV, like on Channel 9, when I remember them playing California Jam 2. It was that outdoor concert.
Oh yeah.
Ted came on, when he used to wear the white pants and the raccoon tail out of the back.
Yep.
He had the big beard and everything. And he was just a crazy ass guy on stage, and he was a great player, and the screaming he did, he was just nuts, man.
That was, I had to catch a lot of that stuff later on in life. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so much good music tonight. This has been awesome, man.
Yeah, we can. Like you said before, we can go hours because there's so much stuff, and so much stuff that either influenced you or you have the memories in your lifetime. You go,
yeah.
You go on forever.
Well, You got a big collection. We might have to get together and do another one this summer. Give you some
Yeah.
time to marinate in your head. You know what I mean? But it's been awesome. I want to
Thanks,
thank
man.
you.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.